This is Rebecca Jernigan, your tour guide into discoveries, coming to you live simulcast from the heart of America to around the globe via the World Wide Web, terrestrial radio, satellite, and podcast. Let's journey together into the realms of the unknown to the known in search of enlightenment, knowledge, and truth. All right, I am here in the heart of America, Kansas City, broadcasting live and heard on the Journeys with Rebecca Radio Network. And tonight is a fabulous show with a fantastic guest. Really needs no introduction, Clif. You can find his website at halfpasthuman.com. And tonight we're going to be discussing all the latest reports, as well as some new information that has come out. The latest one since September 15th. There's been a couple other new ones that has been posted a few days ago, as well as some notes that Clif has made that he's going to share with us tonight. So this is going to prove to be a very interesting show for everyone listening. So as we go along, we are going to be visiting again with Clif right after this short break. So let's journey together. Stay with us. Everyone, welcome back. And tonight's guest is Clif. Clif, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. So glad to be here.
It is so wonderful to have you back. It seems like it has been forever since you've been on the show. Lots
it's
of
that
changes.
time. It just flies.
I know. We talked about that. We've talked about that every time you get on here about how it speeds up and how it changes and shifts. And, you know, it's about trying to be fluid because there's nothing that's really what I would call the term stable anymore, huh?
Exactly. The only consistency is change itself. Yeah.
That's right. That's right. You've got a ton of information for us tonight, but I did really want to say thank you so much for taking the time again to be here with us and the audience and sharing this information with us. It's wonderful that you come forward and share not only the information from the reports, but also put your own unique twist and obviously a lot
well,
of
I don't know that helps many people, but
it does me.
but you're most welcome for listening to all my BS.
Well, we kind of like it.
Oh, okay. I don't know what that says about either of us.
Well, I'm not either, but at least we're in the same boat together.
There you go. Yeah. Unfortunately,
not October 10th. Was it like 2 weeks ago, a week or so?
Yeah, it was like, I don't know, on the 1st or 2nd. It was back away. So.
Yeah. You sent out an update. Why don't we talked about that. Why don't we go ahead and start talking about the update, because that's a lot of what's on people's mind, this latest information that comes outside of the Alta report the report that you put out September 15th.
Right. We run in order to prevent self-referential problems, circuitous references, and causing our databases to spiral in on themselves, we run this thing that we call MOM, which is our model of model space. And it's a super subset of the entire model space, and it allows us to filter out our own stuff, basically, and serves other functions. And one of its functions is to clarify the high-level archetypes. I was just running, you have to run through and do these tuning processes between each run and throw out words and note changes and all of this other work. Well, it's maintenance work. In any event, though, I was running some routines on the MOM database and noticed that we'd had a very large shift in some of the archetypes relative to the economic situation, which I knew was going to crumble and be nasty in any event and was going to be a dollar death period from November to November. But the MOM seemed to suggest that the November to November would be more focused on social chaos rather than economic degradation per se. That, yeah, there was going to be a lot of economic degradation, but that it would be overtaken by the social chaos, and that to a certain extent the dollar death component would be much more rapid and much deeper than I had anticipated. Because in looking at it spread out in the larger entity, in the larger model space, the dollar death meme or thought pattern continues from November to November. when it really trails off in November of 2010. But within the MOM, when you advanced that smaller model, its most, how do I want to say this, its heaviest impact on the social psychology is actually from November of this year, November 4th or 5th, to about mid-December or so. And thereafter trails off, or rather is subsumed or lost in the larger social chaos issues that arise. So there's also a corollary or a set of crosslinks over to this area in the larger model that translated down to what we've been seeing for a number of months, maybe even over a year, was a phrase of lockdown. And it really came to a point here, again, around the November 4th, 5th, or so on. And we don't have a clear understanding of what is going to be locked down, but whatever it is going to be relatively key to the financial system. And it may be that lockdown occurs on the 25th, which would be a weekend, and so I can't really feature that. But nonetheless, it could occur on or before October 25th that would create the sudden shift into building tension, and maybe whatever it is that's locked down, maybe even banks. I hesitate to say that because I really don't see what would be the point. But maybe even those might be locked down for a period of, say, about 10 days, and then that would coincide with this uptick of building tension language. So we have a very high level of confidence in the sudden sharp swing into building tension language, and now we're sort of trying to backfill and figure out where that could come from. And one thing that the MOM component of model space was very clear about was that the building tension was very much driven, perhaps as high as 80%, by the sudden shift in language relative to the economy. So, I invite people to look at their local newspapers or USA Today online or something like this and just scan through some of the stories, and you'll see that at the moment we're in sort of a release period. And a real good example are stories about the Obama peace prize, because they're all about release language. It's all basically the shock and the surprise of it all. Whereas building tension language is very much about projections of fear and anxiety and so on. And so we're going to have a sudden shift on the 25th of October, again a Sunday, so I'm just unclear, although it's late enough on Sunday that it may be arising from the Asian markets. But nonetheless, it does appear to be very heavily weighted towards the economic situation, which will, according to the smaller model, get very much worse very fast and will continue for a very intense period that will run into December, and thereafter the other issues of social chaos will be a little bit more commanding of our attention.
Okay, so around the 25th, we're looking at something that is also associated with what you call the lockdown. Could be associated with the financial system. One of the things in the information that you had sent out was that, or if I can find it again, that it had to do with maybe Obama asking the world to bail us out or something like that?
No, that would fit as a potential on why we see them running around. Our data still shows that the Obama administration at the high level is shown in a position of like global travel in November. And we always wondered, why are all these people scurrying around after this large, whatever it is, that caused the turn of the language? And one of the reasons we could feature was after it became rather difficult to feature the following scenario. Basically, why would they be running around after the Cuban Missile Crisis? You do all of your shuttle diplomacy and all of that kind of stuff before there's the large release or large shift into building tension. And so it was kind of an after the cow had already gotten out of the barn kind of a situation. So it didn't really make any sense. So we thought, okay, what would cause the administration at a very high level, involving apparently a fair number of them, to be scurrying around the planet talking to others of their ilk and foreign governments in this period of time in early November? Well, especially after a period of building tension. One of the things that could cause such a thing would be a banking or a failure at any level, perhaps, even all the way back into derivatives, such that it required, at least they think it does, intervention by our politicos with other political elements within the planet to try and overcome some financial hurdle. And that could be a banking lockdown, could be banks that are so totally insolvent because the dollar is fundamentally declared bankrupt by some move that may come out in the end of October, or any number of things relative to that would cause the administration to send people out to, say, Russia or China, saying basically, please, please, please buy our debt. And they're going to be rebuffed, but nonetheless they will feel the need to go on out and make the effort. Make sense?
It does. So let me ask you one more question about this. If we're looking at it, it was the actual reports were like November of 2009 through November of 2010 for this whole financial thing. Has that changed as far as the end result of this year period, so to speak, or has that time shortened up?
No, it has not changed.
Okay.
The end result will still be more or less effectively done in November of 2011, but it just appears that rather than having the economic woes be the primary driver for that whole year, they will taper off in the early part of 2010 as they become subsumed in the larger social chaos that is actually generated by those economic woes. So imagine a situation where the economy really becomes horribly pear-shaped, as the Brits say, over the course of this fall and winter, such that by early spring we have basically starvation going on en masse. No one has any unemployment. There's no flow through the banking system. Most of the banks are now owned by one or two entities. We've got social unrest as people are processed out of houses and through the foreclosure system and any number of other elements going on, such that there's basically sort of a riot in the street kind of an issue. At that point, the emotional concerns will shift rapidly from the underlying cause of the economy to the demonstrated active component of the revolution, which takes off from that point forward.
Okay.
Okay, so initially we're in the revolution now. We're in the early stages of it where people would gather in the 1700s, they would gather in small villages around notice boards that had basically seditious literature posted. And they would read this, and eventually they would, there might be small tussles with local loyalists and that kind of thing going on. And we're at that same stage where there's some small level of active movement, but it will eventually take over. But what's going to be the big driver for it is the economic problems of this winter, of this fall and winter. And it may come very much more rapidly than I'd anticipated. And I don't know that any of us have ever really seen anything in modern history. Even the collapse of the Soviet Empire did not destroy a global reserve currency, and so we don't really know how rapidly that will occur. It could happen in a relatively short period of time, even though I happen to think of it as this giant monolith. It could go fairly rapidly. If that's the case, the dollar could effectively die over, say, a 10-day period of time, and that might be how long it takes for the oil-producing states and energy producers of all kinds to decide that they're just no longer going to take dollars anymore. At that point, over those 10 days, the United States becomes effectively bankrupt.
Okay, interesting. Is there anything in your reports that show anything that replaces that? The dollar?
I don't have no, I don't show anything that is a model of a new currency or any of that sort of thing. New currencies are curious.